Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm in the Temecula Valley with Kęstutis Vizgirda, but we're going to call him Gus. Gus is the winemaker of Wilson Creek Winery. And Gus, welcome to Wine Soundtrack, and tell us a little bit about Wilson Creek Winery.
Well, thank you. Wilson Creek Winery is, I'd say, in the heart of Temecula wine country, and we're one of now 50 different wineries out here. There's quite a few of us, and we actually opened up our doors in year 2000. So we've been here for a little over 22 years, and we make quite a few wines. We do both sparkling wines as well as still wines, and we do about 36 different varieties.
Wow. So is everything estate fruit? How many acres do you own?
Well, that's a good question. On estate, we have 64 acres of vine. And the neat thing about Temecula is that it's sort of small and divided out. And but we farm over 300 acres right now, so it's scattered about all around Temecula Valley.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said that you make 36 different wines. I'm curious. Maybe you can't name every grape, but what grapes are you working with? What are you growing?
I think we're really known for two of them. One is the Petite Syrah, and one of the tricks is to blend a little bit of Petite in most of the red wines. So sort of just a kind of the Temecula kiss, a signature. A little bit of that gives a color structure and just something that kind of identifies us a little bit different from everyone else. So I think the Petite is definitely one of them. We are really well known for our white Cabernet. So that's probably our biggest selling white wine. It's Cabernet, of course, made in the white wine style. We do quite a bit of that.
I like that.
Yeah.
And what other grapes, just in general? You can just throw
sure.
them out.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Viognier, Roussanne, Syrah, a lot of Rhone varietals, and maybe a few of Italian as well. We've got Sangiovese out here, and, we've got Tempranillo, that sort of thing. So it's a hodgepodge, and I think one of the reasons is because we're still sort of defining ourselves as a wine country. Other wine countries have already done so, and so they now kind of feature certain types of wines. You know, you got the Zins at Paso, cabs up in the Nap area, right? We're still defining what we have down here, and of course, just warm grape varietals really do well down here. Mourvèdre, I think does very well. Cinsault does very well.
Rhone grapes. Yeah, like you were saying, you do Rhone. So I'm curious, are your wines available outside of Temecula? Are you direct to consumer? Is it where do people find Wilson Creek wines?
Yeah. Well, we're mostly direct to consumer. Most of the wineries down here are very small, and we are right between LA and San Diego. And as a result, we have 8 million people in the local area. So we have no problem having people coming away from those big cities to get away from it, go out to the country and have a little fun and enjoy the wine country. So we're mostly direct to consumer, but we do have a little bit of retail, but mostly in the local area.
And your total case production?
Right now, for still wines, we are around 40 to 45,000.
Seems big by many standards, and you sell that all direct. But I see how large your property is, and I see how many people are tasting in the tasting room and outside. It's like, it's amazing. I mean, if you haven't been to Temecula, you have to kind of see it to believe it. So I'm wondering, Gus, about you. What is your first memory relevant to wine?
Oh, boy. Gosh, that's a very good question. See, I have a very unusual name, Kęstutis Vizgirda, so it's Lithuanian, right? And I just grew up with wine and and beer and whatever is part of what we always did. So it goes way, way back. And I think it's kind of like the Italians, where you get the wine with a lot of water in it, and then as you get older, it's less water and more wine. Same thing holds true with me. And but it wasn't until it wasn't until I got into the military and was stationed in Germany that I really got involved in it. And I was lucky enough to be right along the Rhine River, and I had a little bicycle, and I was going up and down that river and trying every single wine I can come across. And I thought, and then I had a little apartment off base. It was right in the vineyard, right, and then the river was right there. And I go, I love this. I want this to be part of my life. And I was fortunate to get out of the service and come to California, and ended up in Southern California and in a wine growing region that was developing, and had opportunities for people like me to get into wine and winemaking.
And that's Temecula.
And that's Temecula.
So, obviously, you've explored wine, and you literally explored it by bike. But I'm curious, in all the years, was there one particular wine that really sticks out as a memory? Maybe it was an aha moment wine, or one of those really memorable wines, and if you recall what it was and the occasion?
Oh my goodness, there's many of them. There's many of them. There was, when I was in Germany, Gruner Veltliner was really kind of popped in my head. And of course it's home of the Riesling, and I was just intrigued that a grape like Riesling can have a really dry, fruity character all the way to dessert, ice wine. And it was just amazing that it had so many different ways of expressing itself. So it was probably one of the first ones there. And then while stationed there, a fellow that lived out in California came back with Zinfandel. And I go, Zinfandel. So I tried that out, and I go, wow, that is interesting. I never experienced something like that. So, I grew up in the 60s, so it was jug wine, right? And Annie Green Springs and all that stuff. And so having fine wine and being in Germany, it just opened my eyes up. And so by the time I got out of the service and came to California, I was all ready to go.
Yeah. So, if we were to come home to your house, and in your cellar, I mean, it could be a small collection under your bed or in the closet, or you might have a huge selection, but I'm wondering, what kind of wines would we find in your home? What do you drink?
That's a very good question. A lot of people ask, so if you were stuck on a desert island.
Oh, that question's coming later,
so
hold off on that one.
Okay. Got it. I drink all different kinds of wines, reds, whites, desserts, and whatever. The idea is, how does that grape express itself? And I think that's the thing that really intrigues me. You got a lot of cabs, but here's a cab from a certain region and whatever, and the winemaker decides to treat it as slightly different. And now you can see how it's expressed, and it's just amazing, and how much the wine actually can express the region as well as the people involved. So my wine collection has a combination of quite a bit, of course up in Paso area, but mostly in the warm growing regions, only because I'm focusing on that. I'm trying to figure and develop wines that are expressive but not overly fruity, and try to retain the acidity. So I'm leaning toward, going toward Cinsaults. We've done very well with them. Veg as well, as opposed to those big beefy ones with a lot of fruit and whatever. That's already been done. So looking for something that's more expressive in a different direction.
So you say warm climate regions you're attracted to, and Paso makes perfect sense. What other regions sort of fall into the warm region? I mean, you usually talk to people who are always focused on cool climates, so it's an interesting, what warm climates around the world sort of grab you?
Oh, okay, around the world. We just recently we had a trip in South Africa, so that was quite fun. The region is incredible. So Stellenbosch area, and we tried a lot of the wines there, and how they treated the wines and when they picked it, etc. And of course the Pinotage down there. And locally, I would say Santa Barbara area as well. Australian wines as well. So there are a number of places that are warmer areas, and it's just interesting how they're treated. So, you lose your acid, you lose your tannins, you get fat fruit and whatever. It's just typical of the area. So by choosing the correct grape varieties and just, good winemaking practices, you can develop something with a little finesse and retain all those things that normally get lost.
So is there something that you opened from your collection or out to dinner that you drank recently that tasted really, really good?
Oh,
I'm going to make you go specific at some point.
okay. Oh. Well, we're at harvest, and it's really hot, and so I'm in a Sauv Blancs right now. I like something nice and cool, crisp, clean, simple. It just nothing too big and bulky. And right now, anything from New Zealand, right now is just tasting really good. My wife knows that, and so she goes shopping, and she comes home with two things. She'll come home with some really nice Sauv Blancs, and then sometimes she comes in with bunches of grapes from Costco. And I go, are you kidding me? That's what I do all day. I got grapes, I'm eating them, and everything. And I come home and I've got grapes for fruit. Can you get some peaches or something?
Well, I'm just going to laugh on that. But, I'm curious, you work with a lot of different grapes, and you've already said that grapes express themselves differently from where they come from. But do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
Absolutely. A perfect variety is the one that fits exactly the way it has to fit for you at that moment.
Oh, God, that's a nice... It makes perfect sense, but...
It really is true. And let me explain that, I like to go see movies, or I like to listen to music or whatever. And, I got some favorite bands or whatever like that. But if I'm in a certain mood, in a certain, something's going on, something just really hits it. And it's a perfect thing. I can't believe that movie just really hit the spot, or that song really did it. That moment, that time, the way I feel, that's the perfect thing. So I think wine is the same way. It's expressive, just like music and movies and any art form out there. And it expresses exactly what it is, and it ties into where you are in your life at that moment, and that becomes the perfect wine. And so you have to grab that moment at that moment and enjoy it, because if you try to do it again and the next day or whatever, it's not there.
Yeah. Well, so that makes perfect sense as a wine drinker, and I'm wondering, and I mean, that you're right. I mean, perfection is an elusive thing, so saying that there's a time and a place for it makes perfect sense. But as a winemaker, do you feel the same way? Is there a perfect variety?
Got it.
Is there one to work with? Or no? I don't know.
I'm going to go safe and say no. But let me add something to that. I'm going to say no, but absolutely. The evolution is quite interesting. So you're in the vineyard, you're seeing the grape grow, and eventually when it's it's time to harvest, you're out there, you're picking the grapes, you're tasting them, looking at the character. Now you chose this particular day to pick it, and then you're eating and tasting the fruit, and in your mind, you've already formulated a path for that particular wine. And there have been moments during this whole process where I felt that what happened in the vineyard really showcased itself very well in the grape. The acidity was there, the fruitiness was exactly there. I tasted it, and I go, oh, I got that grape right at that peak moment that I really want. And now I better not screw up. I better make a good wine. And that becomes kind of that perfect moment for me, where everything sort of falls into place, and that did it. It's happened to me a couple of times. The last time it was, a number of years back with the Viognier, and it won Best in State. And when I made it from the very beginning, I knew it was bound for good things.
Wow. Well, so I'm curious, you don't have a problem selling your wine. You have crowds outside drinking your wine, buying your wine. But I'm curious what your opinion is on wine critics and scores. Do they, in a general sense, but also in a personal sense, how, with your wines or as a drinker?
Well, they definitely serve a place. I mean, it's like having an umpire in a baseball game who calls the strikes or the balls and whatever. And you need that. I think you need critics, you need writers, you need something to keep everyone in line. and focus on a particular goal, excellence. You're always looking for excellence. And initially, I think Temecula Valley was sort of, we're talking like 30 years ago. We're sort of out of that realm, only because we were direct-to-consumer, and so what critics had to say was irrelevant, because I got people coming in from LA and San Diego, and they're buying my wine. It doesn't matter what they said and did. However, we're growing up, and as we're growing up, we're finding that, hey, we need that criticism. We need that to help us focus and direct ourselves to achieve that thing. In the same token, we're looking at ways to see what Temecula is all about and showcase that character. And I think we're doing a really good job. And I'm seeing that a number of wineries here in the valley have submitted their wines to various magazines, and they're getting, the 90-plus scores. And so, which, I'm thinking like 20 years, 30 years ago, it wasn't done.
Huh. Well, I'm curious on that note. For someone who hasn't had the pleasure to taste Wilson Creek wines yet, what do you think they're missing out on?
Well, if they're going to be tasting our wines here at the winery, they're going to be missing out on just having a good time. You're away from the bustle and hustle of towns or whatever, and you come out into wine country, and especially in a local area. You kind of unplug a little bit. There's a magic that happens at this winery. People come in with cell phones in their hands, and they're texting as they're walking. But when they sit down in our lawn area, or upstairs in the upper room, and actually sitting down and trying wines, the phones disappear, and people are actually talking to each other. They're not texting each other, they're actually talking to each other. And I go, wow, that's what the purpose of wine is. It's to bring us together as people and socialize and just enjoy and talk about the wine and anything else. So they're missing out on that. But I think also they're missing out on exploring wines as expressed by us. Of course, we make cabs and merlots and whatever, like everybody else, but there are different grape varieties that are pretty unusual and unique that we really do well with down here. So it's just another expression of that particular wine, and you get a bigger, fuller experience of what wine's all about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if space aliens were to land on your property right now, which of your wines would you want to welcome them with that says, this is Wilson Creek Winery?
We do very well with our Petite Syrah, so definitely that. I think we do well with our Cinsault. That's really done very well lately. So definitely would give them a case of that. Depending on the size of the spaceship, we got to give them one of our flagship wines, which is the White Cabernet. So that, and
you're really loading them up.
Oh, I have to do it. Go send it out and go do your planet and come back.
So you're saying you're in harvest right now, and you've been doing this for quite a bit now. Temecula's a hot region. It's over 100 degrees today. There's a lovely wind outside that helps cool that down. And I'm sure that's a pretty consistent thing here is heat. I'm curious, we know every vintage tells a different story, but how much variation do you see year to year? Or do you see a lot of similarity? And if you do see a difference, is it minor or is it bigger? I mean, what have you seen over the years?
Right. Yes, there's definitely vintage variations here in Temecula, and there are years that are cooler than other years. And so, as an example, the earliest I've been doing my first harvest was in '91. So, the earliest I remember ever picking a grape, other than for sparkling wines, was at the very end of July. It was like July 28th or something like that. And the latest we've actually started was sometime in about mid-August, August like 18th or something like that. So it fluctuates about 3-week window here and there. There's been years that it's been very, very dry and quite hot like this year. And so things are coming in hot and heavy. Unfortunately, most of the grapes that are down here are picked by hand and not machine harvest. So they're just picking away really fast. And so on years like that, the first part of that harvest, you're hitting your numbers really well, but by the end, it's you're a little on the sloppy side. So There is variations to it, but and I think that's kind of fun. I think, you know, when you sing variations in vintages, you're challenged more as a winemaker to express that vintage a little bit better in this way. You know, maybe one year is a little on the drier side, so you may get, you know, a change in fruit and whatever, or you've lost your acidity and it's a little bit, it's fun. And then having people coming in saying, oh, I love that, the old one a lot better than this one, or, you know, this vintage better than that. And it makes them come back to see what new wines are going to be released and what new vintages out there and what are the new potentials. Since we make very little on some of these wines, if they come across something they like, we always encourage them to buy a case. Because it ain't going to be there next time.
That's how you sell all that wine direct to consumer. So, are there any signs, omens, or predictors that you look at the beginning of a season that are going to kind of determine what a harvest will be?
One of them, and I think you'll get this from Greg, is when is the last frost that we get down here? And we do get frost periodically. We are frost-free normally by the 15th of April, and we had one the 14th, believe it or not. So that did impact some of that fruit. Then the other thing is a massive heat wave that we may get right at harvest. And when that happens, you get dehydration in the fruit, and things change quite a bit. I think those are the two main ones. Just in general, I think that's it. We're on the drier side down here, so we have drip irrigation, so we take care of that. Greg's very proactive in maintaining that vineyard. And when it gets hot, he'll spray the vineyard down with calamite clay, which is really interesting. It's a clay that acts kind of like a sunscreen to the grapes. Huh. So from a distance, you're looking at it, look like someone did some Christmas flocking on that vineyard. It's sort of a streak of white, you know, all where the fruit zone is. But it reflects the heat and sun, and it keeps this fruit from sunburning.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. And yes, you know, it is very easy to sunburn out here. I think just walking to your winery from the car, I think I got a sunburn. So, you said you're drinking a lot of Sauvignon Blanc right now. It's hot out. I get it. You know, that's what you want. But as a winery, do you have any other traditions, good luck rituals you do at the start of harvest to kick it off? Aside from all the Sauvignon Blanc you're drinking.
Yeah. Well, you know, the harvest crew gets together and they have a barbecue, and the cellar crew, we get together, and we normally go to our favorite pizza place and just enjoy our company, knowing that we're really going to get into the thick of things. And then, you know, during the harvest itself, we get donuts and bagels and whatever, and just enjoy that. As far as rituals, yeah, you know, after a hard day's work, we'll sit down and have a nice cold beer.
Of course.
And as you know, it takes a lot of beer to make good wine, is what they say. So it is very true. And it's kind of fun, because then we get back and we talk about the day and see what we could do to make things better and run things. And we have a really tight crew. There's a certain level of passion, I think, in the wine industry that you don't see in a lot of industries. And I think the reason why this passion is there is because a little bit of them, whatever that is in that wine. So when other people try that wine, they get that. And I think that's what, you know, especially the cellar crew and the vineyard crew, they're really focused on and making sure that they do their job well.
That's a really beautiful sentiment. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, I know that Greg is the vineyard manager and you're the winemaker. Do you go out and spend time in the vineyard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when you're out in the vineyard, or maybe this translates more to when you're in the cellar, do you communicate with the grapes? Do you communicate with the wines? Do you talk to them? Do they talk to you? And I mean, if so, what do you say? I mean, is it more in the cellar, and Greg talks to them in the vineyard? Do you ever yell at them?
Oh my goodness, yeah. How sane is the winemaker, right? I gotcha. Right. So it's interesting. You know, I go in the areas, the low-lying areas that I know is very susceptible to frost, and I look to see where that's at. I look at, you know, how the vines are growing, you know, if they're growing correctly, or if there's a shoot, you know, droop and wilt, if there's a lot of lateral growth that shouldn't be there, stuff like that. And I'll make note of it. Greg's so good at what he does, so I don't see much of that there. You know, when I do talk, it's kind of, I talk in plant talk, so it's not using words. I touch and feel the vines, and then in my mind and my, you know, my soul, I says, you know, grow good and make good wine. We're all counting on you. Don't let us down. That
It's
kind
a
of
telepathy.
thing. Yes,
Telepathy.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So when you were a little boy, what did you want to be when you grew up? Before you knew wine was the thing.
I wanted to be a fireman on the fire truck when I was, because we lived a few blocks from a volunteer fire department, and every time that fire siren went off, all of the guys, all the boys would run at the end of the block, sit there under this tree and wait, and all the volunteer fire guys would get in their trucks, which was parked in their driveways, and just tear down the road. And we cheer them on, and they wave at us. They go into the fire station, and we would count 1001, 1002 to see when that door opens up and that fire truck goes out, and we were just thrilled by the whole thing. I wanted to do that, and then I ended up actually, my first career was a meteorologist. I did aviation weather.
Wow.
It's the only job I know that you could be wrong all the time and still have a job. Yeah, that was a good gig, is it?
But that's really interesting, because obviously that background plays a part in what you do today. I mean, your understanding of the climate.
That is true. That is true.
Even though you're probably wrong all the time.
Exactly. That is true. That is true. But then when I was in Germany and in the military, and then I was stationed there, and then got out, I just got into wine. I wanted to be into wine business and enjoy wine. So I was just very fortunate to end up in Southern California in the Temecula area. And I think at that time there'd be nowhere else in California that had the opportunity for someone like me to just jump in and get in there. And I did it the hard way. I started, you know, dragging hoses and doing that, and, you know, doing lab work and whatever, and took years and years as a cellar guy, and eventually becoming an assistant winemaker, and eventually a winemaker. And now, here I am, many years later, and enjoying it.
So when you're not making wine, what do you like to do in your free time?
I'm a woodworker. I do a lot of woodworking. Yep, I like making cabinets and furniture, things like that. So I'm currently making a desk. I'm using old pallets. I've been finding these pallets that have, instead of pine, they're made out of oak. And they got nail holes and whatever, so I've been pulling them on the side, and I'm using that in old barrels. So this is going to be all reclaimed lumber, and I've made a wine cabinet and a whiskey cabinet from reclaimed lumber, old pallets, and it's got nail holes and stains and whatever, and it's just incredible. So that's what I do. So I enjoy making that.
Ooh,
yeah,
sounds great. And do you, we talked a little bit about wine and what you like to drink, and I'm curious if you had to pick, or maybe you won't, red, white, or rosé?
Rosé. White wine, yeah. Rosé and white wine. Rosé is like a white wine with another layer of complexity, another layer of something interesting. So if you're going to choose the two, you're going to go something that is more intriguing, something that's a little bit more interesting. And I would go with rosé.
Wow, red, white, rosé.
Right.
I like that. I like it.
Right.
Most people go red or white or all, but I like rosé.
Yeah. If you're going to choose between the two, white or rosé, I would definitely do that. But if you're going to have three of them, right, I would... Well, are we going to the desert island?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
But I will ask you this. When you're planning a romantic evening for you and your wife,
Right.
What sort of wines do you open to set the mood for a romantic evening versus just a Tuesday night at home? Not that a Tuesday night can't be a romantic evening.
All right. The wines, basically there'd be maybe some sort of a dry sparkling wine at the very beginning, and I think it's a palate cleanser. It's fun. It goes well with a lot of little stuff that we may just enjoy. My wife is crazy. She's retired, and so we have a huge garden, so she does a lot of canning. And so we just bring in a lot of stuff in, and she just finished canning these plum. It's like a plum preserve or something like this. It's incredible. And we make chutney and things like that. So we'll have a little plate of cheeses and crackers and some of those little preserves and chutneys that she makes, and we enjoy that. It's really quite nice. Sparkling wine goes really well with that. Then I think just lately we've been kind of on the light side, so we're eating more fish and more chicken, that sort of thing. So we'll go right into a dry white, and then we normally don't do a dessert wine, but if we had to, we always like a nice little port or something like that, Yeah.
So speaking of, since you took us through a meal, vaguely on your varieties, but you took us through a meal. I'm curious, how do you approach food and wine pairing? Do you think there are rules you have to follow? Do you approach it in a different way, or you just, drink what's there?
Gosh. How do we approach it? I approach it, I think, a lot differently than my wife. She has a more methodical way of doing it because, she's put something together, and there's a lot of stuff that are actually coming in from our garden. So, she has a certain vision concerning that. I, on the other hand, am more of exploratory. I'll say, okay, here we have it. Why don't we just have it with this particular wine? And then I'll say, yes, it does match because of the acidity or the fruitiness or the structure, or it does it for those very reasons. And so it's an educational part on my mind is the pairing. And I can't tell you how many times I've read, hey, you should try this with this, and somebody else, that's what they wrote, right? When we did, we do that. Oh, let's get that wine and have it with that thing. And it didn't do it for us. And so to me, it's more exploratory to find out what really does do the pairing, what really showcases it. Is it the acid, or is it the fruit, or the structure that is the number one thing? And I have found out personally that it is the structure and the fruit followed really closely by the acidity. So that really makes the pairing work.
So trying to match structure to structure?
Right. So, or opposite. So if you have hot, spicy Thai foods, you want to go on the sweeter side. So a sweeter Riesling kind of cools that thing. If you have something very tropical type food or whatever, like teriyaki or whatever, you don't want something overly fruity. You may want to go on the other end, right? Sometimes it's like to like. You've got this pork dish and it has some sort of braise or whatever, and you're using a wine for that braising or whatever. You'll use that wine for the pairing with that as well. And then salads with vinaigrettes and whatever, we tend to go on the fruity side. And since it's a lot of acid, we try to have something less acidic because we don't want to compete against the acid. So we'll have that's how we kind of approach it.
See, some good tips there.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, now we're going to go for some more good tips. So I'm wondering, when, we're all given a lot of advice throughout our years in life, in living, and as well as our careers. Is there a piece of advice that was given to you that you carry through life, or in how you approach life or work? And if so, what is it, and who taught it to you?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. I guess I think that, I don't know how to put it in words, but, it's basically you've got to find a passion in your life. And when you do that, whatever it may be, and you're driven by that passion. If you're driven by that passion, it's not work. And all of a sudden, it just becomes a joy. And it's always a learning process. You've never mastered it. You've never understood it. There's always another facet that reveals itself, and then you have to sort of look at it and kind of go through the steps. So have passion, and then have passion drive your work ethic, and make sure that, you know, each day you get up, you have this positive attitude, knowing that you're the most luckiest person in the world, and you're going to go and do what you really truly like. And this was shown to me by my grandfather.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, when you look back at your career, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date?
Career in wine.
Or career in general.
Oh.
You just can't say your children,
Yeah, I know.
or your long marriage, or your.
All right, did you hear that, honey? All right, I'm off the hook. Okay, I'm gonna deal with just the wine business. I gotta play it safe, you know, and somehow. As far as my career in wine, it's all personal, and it's small, tiny little things where a certain grape comes in, and I had a vision or something, and the things that I did just produce exactly what I wanted in that wine, and personally, it just makes me feel great that I actually did that achievement. Tiny little things. It's never a big thing. It's a series of small little things like that. A series of, getting up in the morning, coming into work, and going out in the vineyard, checking out the grapes, and then finding out that they're ripening up exactly the right way. That's an achievement I feel so good about, and it's a tiny one. But when you add them all up together, it comes together, and it just makes that passion that you have for that wine worthwhile. If you're looking for the big win, you're going to wait a long time. So I'm good with the tiny ones and stringing them all together, and I'm really happy with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I want you to complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like?
A chair without legs, I guess.
Okay, now we've got a chair with legs. You're sitting at it. We're sitting at a table.
A table without wine.
I like that. No, I like that. I like that. That's a good one. So I'm moving on to the next question. You answered that. That's perfect.
Good.
But we're sitting at a table here, and we've got your wines on the table. We're enjoying them with a meal, but there's an empty seat next to you. I'm wondering, who from any walk of life, living or deceased, would you want to be drinking a bottle of Wilson Creek wine that you made with you?
Allison, where do you come up with these questions? My goodness. Oh, my gosh. Wow. Wow, who would be in that chair, right? Right now, should I go on the political side?
You can. It's living, deceased, famous, personal, whatever you want.
Gosh. All right, well, I would have, right now, if that was the case, I have, table there is an empty chair and we have wine, probably Putin right now. and say, look, life is, here it is, and you need to reconsider what's going on out there and just enjoy life, and look at the simple things and have fun, have conversations. We're so different in so many different ways. I think, it would, something like that, could probably turn people around. So if there's one person in the world right now that I want turned around a little bit, it would be that guy, right?
And if you could share a bottle of your wine on... Oh, no, you know what? I like that answer. Go for it,
I just want, because basically that's it. It's enjoying it and, getting the stress out and just, simplifying life.
You could solve the world's problems by sharing a bottle of wine, of Wilson Creek wine with them.
I think so. I really do. I really do. I have made so many friends just sitting back and then trying some wine with them. And, and we're completely different walks of life and different backgrounds and whatever. But all of a sudden, we have something in common. We enjoy life, we enjoy company, we enjoy wine, and that's awesome, you know. Yeah.
Gus, guess what? We're not finished yet, but it's time for that question.
Okay. I was on a desert island.
If you were sent to a desert island, a deserted island, or space, or whatever, what 3 wines, and you've got to be a little more specific than red, white, and rosé, but what 3 wines would you want to take with you? You can give me a specific grape and region, or you can go specific with a producer if you want to finally go specific.
3 wines. It's always been one. Right, exactly. So it's kind of funny you ask that because doing tours, people will sometimes saying, if you're, what is your favorite wine? Mm-hmm. And I go, are you asking me if I was on a desert island in the middle of the Pacific, what wine would I have? I go, that's easy. It's a Sauvignon Blanc because the only thing I'll have is fish.
Okay, but without being so reasonable, this is going to be a hot or cold, temperature controlled. You have refrigeration if you need it, because everyone always asks me that. You have ice if you need it. You have refrigeration. It's not a heat wave. It's whatever conditions you want. Right. The 3 wines you'd want to have if they were the last 3 wines of your life.
Got it.
And yes, you can have an endless run on them too.
Got it. Well, I think number 1, it'd probably be probably a New Zealand South Blanc. I just think that it just goes so well with so many different things that if you just, regardless of what you're having, it pretty goes well with a lot of things to a certain point. So I think that's just sort of the go all, do all, nice crisp wine. I just enjoy it, and so that would definitely be on the list. I think a nice dry Alsatian Riesling would be another one. There's just something about Riesling. I think it just goes to my core beginnings of wine and understanding wine. We were lucky enough to go to the Alsace region a few years ago, and I was just blown away by the different ways that Riesling was expressed there. It's just really, really great, and I think that would definitely be on that list. Then I think so. It's 2 whites, right? Yeah, so now we got to have. That's all right, and I got to go with the red. No, reds. The reds. I've been bouncing around here and there on what's really intriguing for me, and certain wines are really one-dimensional, and they're there it is, and here it is, and whatever. So for reds, it's a little bit more difficult, but I think I'm starting to really look at some of those obscure Italian varietals. I've near to Alvola, kind of was intriguing to me. We had a Teraldigo that was quite nice. Things like that are now, to me, really intriguing. So I'd say one of those obscure Italian red varietals that I really haven't really delved in too much to explore. I wouldn't mind having some of those and just sit back and just enjoy it and just try to figure them out in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's almost time for the end, but it's time to play our little game of wine and music pairing. And this is going to be a quick opportunity for you to delve into a little description of the wine, to tell me what it conjures up for you, what it makes you think of wanting to listen to, or something. You can go as general as you want. Now I'm allowing you to be generic, but no, in general. No, you can be general or go very specific, but you spoke about one of your flagship wines, which I find very unique. I love red wines that are red grapes vinified white, but your white Cabernet. Tell us a quick little description of that wine and how that ties into the genre of music.
Wow. Okay. So when Temecula was first put together, UC Davis came down to do a study to find out what farming crops could do well here. So they planted citrus, avocado, and grapes. And they have the grapes that they planted was mostly just Cabernet. And the very beginning, where a lot of the wineries were here, they were direct to consumer. Everyone wanted Cabernet, Chardonnay, Merlot, things like that. So the variety was Cabernet heavy. when we here at Wilson Creek, we looked at Cabernet. We have quite a bit of it, right? And we said, okay, what variations, what other things can we do with Cabernet that is kind of unique? Let's look at it a different way. Let's look at it how we would express it in Temecula. So one of the ways we did it with Cabernet was to remove the skin and basically treat it like a white wine. So what it did is that when you take the skin away and you treat it that way, the small, subtle hints of the flavor of that Cabernet that's locked in behind everything is revealed because you've just taken away. It's like the underwear, right? The wine's underwear. All the outer clothing is out. What is left was that base thing, and it's that nice, fruity, strawberry character to it here in Temecula. And so we wanted to feature that and showcase that hidden thing that you wouldn't find in Cabernet because of all the other stuff that's out there, the oak and all the influence of the skin.
So what music does it conjure up?
Because you're going down to your underwear. You saw where I was going with that. I would say classic rock on that one. Heck yeah. You know, Fleetwood Mac. I would do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you did say that Petite Syrah is a primary grape for you. Put a little Petite Syrah on everything.
Pretty
so
much.
I'm curious with your Petite Syrah. We're talking a big, juicy, muscular wine. What do you think?
Well, with Petite, because it's got to be heavy metal, right? I mean, it's Metallica, right? You know, throw that in there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And what about Riesling? Your wine is a semi-sweet Riesling, so let's go with that. I mean, I know, obviously, if you want to go more with your Alsatian Riesling from your island, you tell me which one you want to pick in the genre of music.
We'll just stick with Wilson. Okay. All right, let's just stick with Wilson. Yeah, so with Riesling, you know, you're looking at something that's just sort of traditional, something that I think almost we all had in some way or another. It's something that maybe, you know, people who just start into the wine or are introduced to the wine may enjoy. So because of that, I think it would just go with just good old country music, you know. I think, you know, any of those country songs or whatever, a little Riesling, because fried chicken, you know, stuff like that. I think country western, country music, yeah.
And I'm going to give you one more because you're good at this. You said you do a lot of Rhone varieties, and you've mentioned Mourvèdre a few times. So I'm wondering, with your Mourvèdre.
The Mourvèdre. Okay. We look at that one, and as well as the Cinsault as the warm region Pinots, right? It has that lightness, the fruitiness, the structure is there. It's really acid driven, more so than some of the other wines. So for the Mourvèdre, I would say because it's driven more by the acid, I think it's driven by the sax. So it's got to be jazz. I think, you know, something you know that punches through, like a nice saxophone kind of music. I think that would work well. Yeah.
Guess we're just about finished. I got one more question with two parts to it. Okay. The first is, you mentioned that you traveled recently to Alsace, and you've been a few places, you and your wife. I'm wondering, what wine region in the world is at the top of your bucket list for your next travels or future travels?
I would like to go to the place where, you know, wine started. I would like to go, you know, to, you know, Greece, in that area there, and, you know, parts of Italy, and, you know, and the Middle East, and places like Israel and whatever, and just, you know, this is where it all began, and really kind of see how they do it. I'm sure they have some really old wineries and whatever that are very, very traditional. That would really intrigue me. Because right now, you know, you got all this modern stuff. You could, that's beautiful and whatever. But I would like to go in regions like that and see how the old ways are still being done in winemaking. You know, where they're actually, you know, in Portugal, where they, you know, stomp on that grapes on the stones or whatever. You know, any region that does that, I would love to see that. I'd like to try those wines. Yeah.
Yeah. And if somebody wants to come try your wines, how can they find you? Where can they find you? Website, location, etc.
Well, it's WilsonCreekWinery.com, and we are in Temecula, wine country, so we're basically right between LA and San Diego. So we're right smack in the middle. And if you're planning to come out, I recommend coming in early, because it does get warm out here, especially during the harvest season. Come during the week. It's less crowded, but I think the big thing is that you're going to enjoy it. And all the wineries are fairly close together, so you don't have to do a lot of driving and going around. It's basically most of us down 2 roads, Rancho California and Deep Portola, and you can go just from one winery to the next and next. And we're growing, and they're all small, tiny little wineries, with the exception of a few, and we're one of the larger ones here in the valley.
And you also have a restaurant on property?
We do, yes, a restaurant, a little cafe, and so we serve, nice little winery type food, and we also have, something like a grab kind of a bar area for pizza and sandwiches, so you can sit back. They have a big central quad area that you can sit down under shade trees or canopies and enjoy the wine. Enjoy, if you like watching people, this is a place to come, and nice little food. And then if you like to sit down and try wine, we have the upper room and the library area. I think what we do is we specialize in what they call a multi-tiered wine experience. If you're out here to have a party or whatever, we've got the bar down there and you can just have fun with your friends. But if you want something serious, we got a quiet place you can sit down, try the wines off the menu at the table, and you have more direct person to server contact. So it's many different tiers depending on what you're looking for in the wine country.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Gus, thank you for joining us on Wine Soundtrack, and let's go taste some wine.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.